sure all your mics are on. Okay, this meeting for the Robla Board of Education on January 23rd, 2025 is now in session. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So welcome to this first meeting of 2025. All board members are present and accounted for with the exception of President DeLuce. Moving on, report of action taken in closed session. There was no action taken in closed session. Moving on to adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The agenda has passed. That's been approved. Moving on to communications. Looks like there are no open communications in front of us. So we'll move on to public communication. This is when members of the public may address the Board of Trustees regarding any special board meeting agenda item during board consideration of that time. And then there's a long gov code. I'm not going to read that. Please note that if you wish to address the Board of Trustees on an agenda item, you should do so when the specific item is called for by the board president. To comment in person, fill out a request to be heard card and give it to the board clerk. You will be called during a session. To submit a comment online via Assembly Gamut meetings, enter your name and email address. The board assistant will approve your comment to the board. To submit a comment on YouTube, type your comment in live chat. The superintendent will share your comment with the board as appropriate. Is there anyone who would like to present in person? Is there any online? None online. Okay, then we will move on to reports. Robla Education Foundation.
Did you turn it on? Yes. Good evening. Tonight is going to be a little bit uncharacteristic because of the many hats I wear within the district, including the foundation. I'm on site council here at Robla. And as some of you on the board have experience with site council from being on it, he got a little push. We deal with the site council, and site council is part of the SIPSA operation that you will be getting reports on tonight. And being on as the site council chair for Robla, I get to work closely with Mr. Caff and the members of the site council. And one of the things that we address is both the LCAP and the spending of Title I funds. And we happen to have a member of our site council who, along with her state job, she is also on the Golden One board, donation board. And seeing all the presentations, the state, the data board, dashboard for the school. She went to Mr. Caff and said, hey, there's an opportunity here for you if all you got to do is fill out a grant. So he filled out the grant request and it came back in December. I don't believe you guys know about it yet, but the site received a $25,000 grant, and Mr. Caff is going to go over what this grant covers a little bit. But because, like other donations made by the public entities, it has to go through a nonprofit organization, and that's where I become involved in it. So this is something that we were approved in December for $25,000. Mr. Caff and myself held a meeting, an organizational meeting for it during the winter break, and came up with how that money is to be spent. So at this time, Mr. Caff will come up and he's going to proceed with the presentation because this is his baby.
So, thank you. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
This, the purpose of this grant is to take our learning platform called Clever and provide it to families that don't have access. So it's really like a grant all about equity. Um, so John, thank you. Thank you very much for your support. Cindy, I might need your help. Or Mom. So, extending the classroom. We know we have multiple families that don't have Wi-Fi and devices at home. And so they can't access our high research related apps like Lexia that are a reading tutor, Happy Numbers, which is number sense, and also Epic Reading at home. And are you guys familiar at all with the Clever app? That thing? Okay. So, thank you. So, with Mr. Lopez and superintendent's support, we have identified 36 families to support, and they're going to have devices, new devices for 2 years that have the Wi-Fi embedded. So they have the hotspot actually in the device, and then those families we will. So we've already collaborated with teachers and staff to identify the students. I'm looking at student data. We are prioritizing newcomer EL students in McKinney-Vento. It's something that Cindy Lyon and I and our Candace Bennett have talked about a long time. How do we give students more opportunities at home? So we're not going to give the parents the devices. We're going to have a reading night, show them how to use the device. We're going to have our intervention teacher, Karen Cook, have a group reading. We're going to collaborate with Sacramento Public Library, give away books, and then we'll have a parent contract of what's expected, and if they are willing to do that work, then we're going to give them the Chromebook. We are going to have weekly monitoring. I was showing Mr. Raven how we can go on the platform and monitor if the families are actually doing the work. And then we're going to have incentives for students that are completing work. So it's a 2-year program. And a lot of thanks has to go to Mr. Lopez. He's purchasing the devices, and he's setting them up. And then we will take over from there. Any questions?
No.
How'd I do, John? Was that short enough?
You did good.
Good, great.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Caff, Mr. Evan,
Thank you.
Last
Mr. Lopez.
thing, Foundation is next month. You can expect me to start hammering about fireworks booth, and if I get lucky, it may be the last year that I have to do the staffing work, or the work to get it staffed. But I'm gonna try to get together with the principals within the next month and see if we can't get each school site to take one day to provide staffing just for that, all the shifts on that day, and then also have them be able to provide a couple of bodies on the 6th and 7th day so that they are also staffed. But it's a work in progress, but hopefully I won't stress as much, and before the end of the school year, we'll actually have every slot filled. So, thank you. Any questions?
Just again, thank you. Thank you to you, Mr. Caff, and Mr. Lopez, and everyone. Wow, this is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Okay, Robla Teachers Association. Classified Student Employee Association. Superintendent.
Good evening. As Mr. Barnes said, it is the first board meeting of the year, so Happy New Year. Just a few things to report, and then I'm going to give the rest of my time to Mr. Castillo. So I do want to say congratulations to Taylor Elementary. They were the winner of the most recent attendance challenge. We had our first terrific 10 of the year, and Mr. Roberts was our guest speaker. Again, wonderful students, and another shout out to our child nutrition, right? Wonderful meal. We are in our final stages of completing the application for the California Community Schools Partnership Program. That application, I believe, is due February 7th. We will plan on submitting early, but just to be clear, we will not know the results until May 31st, 2025. So we have a couple months to wait. In the next couple weeks, I'll be attending the Access Superintendent Symposium, as well as the CAPL Conference. Our February Parent Empowerment Dinner is on Thursday, February 13th, and our guest speaker will be Dr. Luke Wood, the president of Sac State University. Really excited. And now I'll give the rest of my time to Mr. Castillo to give us a brief update on the budget.
Well, this is different now. Good evening, board members, Superintendent Chen, and everybody who is present here tonight and online. Staff has attended 3 different budget workshops. So today we will give a very brief summary of the governor's proposal for 25-26. I want to start by saying that the budget, the proposal was developed prior to the fires in LA. That's very important. So most likely it will change, but this is the latest information that we know as of now. And also is a lot of things, there's not a lot of details yet, a lot because the trailer bills are developed usually in February. One thing is that we will hear is that K-12 is lucky because there's no reduction, there's no cut. Our COLA for 25-26 is 2.4.3%. You remember for this year is 1.07. So that is good news, and we will talk more about what that means. Is that this one? Okay. So one of the positive things is both the governor's budget and the LEO are very online. You know, last year there were billions of dollars in difference. There's some difference here, but both in those 3 revenue sources, the sales tax, the corporate tax, and the personal income tax. So they are very, their projections are really close. So that's why the budget is considered stable. They're not considered a lot of risk about what is expected. But again, this is prior to the LA fires. LA County has to do their taxes until later in the year. And in November is the county, LA County is the #1 county in the nation from revenue, so that potentially could change. The governor, the calculation, is $120 billion that we're in, the LEAs are entitled, but the budget proposal is $118 billion. So the question is right there is still what's happening with the difference. So there's still some there will be probably a lot of conversations about versus the calculations that we're entitled based on the proposition, because that's a calculation versus what the governor proposes. So our biggest risk for us, we discussed in cabinet, is really our COLA is different than what we most potentially receive due to the decrease in enrollment, decrease in ADA that we are experiencing. So this is, as a reminder, our funding is different between, it's in TK to 3, 4 to 6, 7 and 8, and 9, 12. So the higher the districts, the great school districts who are unified, they get higher revenue than elementary schools. I highlight the one in the very number in the bottom. We are required to go 10 to 1 for TK. So we will probably at least have 2 additional class. And the governor is proposing additional revenue of $3,252 to cover those additional costs for 25-26. So this is a calculation that there's a lot of numbers behind to calculate this number. What does this mean for Robla School District? So our average, once we did that, is 14,732 per ADA, no per student. So students have to attend school. when we calculate that by the projected ADA, 1,786, we expect about $26.34 million. This is really important because for this year, our projection for 24-25 is our projected ADA is 1,811. So that is 23 less ADA for the following year. And this is the number that we have for our peak one ADA. So this is our latest. So assuming that we continue the same for the following year, that will be our revenue. However, that could change based on our ADA and enrollment. So the 2.43 ADA that I explained earlier, that could change, right? So this is 2.4.3 right here. I don't know if I can point it, but it assumes that we maintain our enrollment and our ADA. When you have declining enrollment, that doesn't happen. We get funded based on the prior years or the average of the last three years. So that's some calculations that we need to do. So I just did this really quick. This is our continued increasing costs. I just want to bring like CalPERS, for 20, is 27.4% increase for, so it's not the increase, but the projected increase from 27.5 to 27.4. This is a statutory benefits that we had to cover. The pension costs are high. So what does this mean? So we are starting in January. We will adopt our budget based on the May revise. So then maybe we will plan it could change. Sometimes there's some years where the January is really close to the May. So that's the numbers. And sometimes there's significant changes. So this is where we are right now. And thank you. It's unavailable to answer any questions.
Questions?
Thank you.
I have questions. And some of this is, I want to know more about budgets in general. So you said you usually earned a lot of changes between January and the May revise, but we had a really big fire, so that's going to be something that will impact the May revise.
And like I said, every source has tell us that there may be, and the reason is that because in California, the top 2% had a majority of the revenue and very high earners in that area who are not doing their taxes by April 15th. And most of us, they have until November. There's a lot of corporations. There is, I forgot how many numbers. I think it's 14 of the Fortune 500 companies are in the county and they get affected. So all of that will affect the funding for California. We have a lot of natural disasters throughout the history, but they say this is the biggest ever from the economic point of view, what it destroys. So it's just we have to see what it is, and so that's why we have to do a lot of the budget with a lot of caution because there's a lot of uncertainties.
Okay, so we definitely have that uncertainty, and that kind of talks about like how much we collect and when it comes in. I have other questions, and some of it is specific to the fires. So I know that there were a lot of schools lost in the fires. What happens to the revenue that goes to those schools? And I'm not trying to sound like a vulture, but because I know that sometimes those students will go to maybe nearby schools, and sometimes they go other places. What happens in a situation like that? Do you know?
Yeah, we know the state, the governor, and CDE. They did a lot of revisions to the requirements. Like where they did a lot of independent study and flexibility in class sizes, so that way they will continue. So those districts who got affected will continue to collect the ADA associated. So they make it. There were some days, but so most of those districts. So they're trying. It was devastating. There were some schools who had to relocate completely, but the state is trying to hold those districts harmless, as much as possible, because the revenue is through through the ADA. So that's what we know. There was like 5 pages like you don't have to do this, you don't have to. So trying to provide a lot of flexibility to the school districts. Mhm.
Okay, so what if our ADA increases even temporarily because of something like this? A lot of families were displaced. Some move all over the state. If some come here, and we see an increase in ADA, even if it's temporary, even if it's for the rest of the year.
Well, that's very welcome. That's very great news for us because I don't think they will not if they come to us. Remember, our ADA goes from the first day of school to P2. That is like the middle of March. So a student will come now. We are serving the students. We can also collect the ADA, but it will be only for that will be a period of 2.5 months. So we will get like a quarter of the ADA versus a whole full year ADA. That's just the way the ADA, the way ADA is calculated. So you attend for a certain period for a month, you only get for the portion of that year.
Okay. The slide that talked about the amounts that schools were getting per grade. Perhaps this is for superintendent because I know you have experience with other school systems. Can you tell me, or do you know where the increase in funding goes? I mean, the difference between 4th to 6th grade and 9th to 12th grade. It's a pretty big difference.
Do you want me to add?
Well, it is just the way the local control funding formula was developed. Before we used to get one number per ADA, and when about 14 years ago, when the local control funding formula became that, the high school districts and middle school districts say, well, that's not fair that you get it more because we have periods, we have more costs. So therefore, the state developed this part of the Governor Davis, and there was a lot. So this is kind of like this. You see a base, right? So that every district throughout the state gets the base, no matter what. So this is the minimum that we need. That's the base, and then the rest and that there's a COLA. Then after that, it just depends on what we call it the unduplicated pupil count. Our percentage of what it is, or free and people call it free and reduced. That's why we would get in our district we get like 14,000 ADA versus 10,000 or 10,044 because based on the students, I think I went deeper than you asked, but it just depends on the grade level that the state developed that's allowed.
And if I can add, the grade span adjustment for TK through 3 is because we have a required 24:1
Yeah.
class size average that doesn't apply to 4 through 7. And then the additional for 9 through 12 is to help with graduation requirements. Programs for graduation requirements.
There used to be a form like that. That's a good point. That where they used to do K3 class size reduction, there used to be a form that we need to complete, and right now it's part of the LCFF calculation. And if we don't meet those requirements, the superintendent Chen mentioned, we get penalized by school from those class size reductions. It's a percentage of what if we don't meet those requirements. Mm-hmm.
I have one more question, and you may not know the answer to this, but I'm just curious. When we get a report like this, does it mirror what happens in the community colleges and the universities and things? I mean, if we get a decent report, do they get a decent report, or is it kind of give and take? Do you know? Do you ever discuss that?
We are part of the K14, so it's a K14 funding. So I know the community college. They also attend. So it's their name is not a local control, but they have a formula very similar, and they do it based on enrollments in the classes that they offer. In the university, I don't know the university level. I'm not familiar enough to. This is a different. Then what I hear is that universities, the UC and they are not happy with a K14 14 because they say, oh, they're getting reductions, but we are not. So that's what when I start a conversation, it's stable, and they say, even though it's not enough to cover all our costs, they say you should be happy because you are getting COLA. We're getting reductions. That's what I so that's what I hear.
Yeah.
Mhm,
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I think.
Okay.
And now our next is our is our wait,
As we have board reports.
I thought you
Okay.
whatever it is.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering if there's a part B to that. Okay, well, so board, now we move on to board member reports. Trustee Divine,
Nothing at this time.
Trustee Cardona,
Nothing to report.
Trustee Hamilton Starks.
I'll save my comments to the end.
Okay. And the only thing I have is that I did receive my Form 700 notification. You probably all received yours too. So, again, I attended the session at CSBA on Form 700, and it really did scare me. So, I'm encouraging everyone to submit theirs as soon as possible. And also, I would love, I did see that, I didn't click on it, but during the Form 700, I saw a little AB, something or other number, that talked about the training. So do we have any more information about the training, meeting that requirement?
Not at this time.
Okay. Well, that concludes our reports. We'll move on to item 5, presentations and information. Our very first report, we only have a few tonight, but our very first report is the fiscal audit report.
Yeah, our partner Brian Halley is doing the presentation. They were gonna do that. They will be on here in person at the last board meeting because we changed it. Now they're gonna do it. They have other commitments and other districts of the board meetings because they do a lot of audits throughout the state. So he will do the presentation through online.
Right.
Brian, you can start now.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity that you're giving me to present the audit report to the board this evening. I thought what I would try to do is just give a brief overview of the audit report, and then if there were specific questions, I could try to answer those after. And you know what I do when I look at an audit report, whether it's one that our firm prepared or another CPA firm prepared, I always do these 3 things. The first thing I do is I look at page 1 of the audit report. That's the opinion letter. That's, you know, the audit report, as you can see, is about 100 pages long. But that first page, the auditor's opinion, is the most important page in the audit report. And there's basically 4 opinions that you can get in a governmental audit. One is an unmodified opinion, and that's what Robla received. That's the best opinion. And what that means is that the financial statements fairly present the financial position of the district at June 30, 2024. And as I said, an unmodified opinion is the best opinion that you can receive. The 3 other opinions that you can get, which are a qualified opinion, an adverse opinion, and a disclaimer of opinion, they only occur if there's problems with the financial statements. And you know, we've never had issues like that with Robla. Then I look at the statement of net position and the statement of activities, which are on pages 11 and 12 of the audit report. And they're just the basic financial statements. You know, the statement of net position is it's a balance sheet, but for a governmental entity, you call it the statement of net position. And it lists the assets and the liabilities, or it lists what you own and what you owe. And the statement of activities is an income statement, but it's called the statement of activities for a governmental entity, and it lists the revenue and expenses of the district. I then skip all the way to the back of the audit report. And there's a section that's called Schedule of Auditors Results. And there's a section that's called Schedule of Findings and Question Costs. And I look at those to see if there are findings. And a finding is something that needs to be brought to the attention of the board. It would be something that we found in our testing that was not in compliance with the requirements of the California Department of Education or the state controller. And it would need to be brought to the attention of the board and reported to those two governmental agencies, the state controller and the California Department of Education. And as a result of our testing for the year ended June 30, 2024, there were no findings that needed to be reported. And so that means that we didn't find anything as the results of our testing that needed to be changed or fixed, okay? And then the last thing that I do is I turn to the very last page of the audit report, and it's a schedule of prior year audit findings. And in this section, I look to see if there were findings that were reported on the prior year report. So that would be for the year ended June 30, 2023, that were, and we have to report to the California Department of Education whether those findings were resolved during the current year. And there was one finding in the prior year related to independent study. Some of the independent study master agreements didn't contain all of the required information. And that finding was completely resolved for the year ended June 30, 2024. And so, you know, that's what I do when I look at these audit reports. If you look at the accountant's opinion and you look to see, you look at the assets and liabilities and the change in financial position or the excess of revenues over expenses, and you see if there were findings and if the prior year findings were resolved, you get a pretty good idea of the financial position and of the district, and you also get a good idea of the status of the internal control over the financial information. And so, you know, that's just kind of what I do. If you had any specific questions regarding the audit report, I could answer those questions for you at this time.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. No questions.
Thank you so much for going over like what pages specifically to look at and making it a little easier for me to understand it. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you. You know, there's so much information in that audit report. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but those basic things will lead you, will alert you to problems if there are any.
And thank you, Mr. Castillo, for making sure that we continue to get such great reports.
That is a teamwork from everybody, so, yeah. The school principals right here, they work really hard to make sure we are in compliance with the independent studies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next report, the Robla Teacher Professional Growth System, or RT-PGS update.
Well, there's getting started. Good evening,
Oh, hi.
I'm Superintendent Chen. My name is Cheryl Coker, and this is my colleague, Marcos Morales. We are the peer facilitators that support the RTPGS, Robla Teacher Professional Growth System, and you're going to see that RTPGS acronym a lot tonight. It's a little bit easier. It's a big mouthful. You're also going to hear us refer to anyone participating in RTPGS as practitioners and those completing the evaluations as facilitators. With that in mind, here is the update for the 24-25 school year. There we go. All right. So new for this year, we added 2 new evaluation types: the preschool special day class and the performing arts. The preschool SDC addresses the unique teaching context and blends elements from both the special day class and the preschool evaluation types. The performing arts was created in response to our new music position, and it was written using the visual and performing arts standards that will allow for a variety of performing arts, such as drama, dance, or choir, as well as music. In response to feedback that we received from practitioners last year, we wrote new goal setting menus to help our teachers draft and create their goals, as well as we created a library of walkthrough videos to support practitioners as they were navigating our online platform called Frontline. So with the addition of those two new evaluation types, we now have a total of 18 different evaluation types, each with a multidimensional approach. There are kind of four broad categories of evaluation types that we do based on their the format of the evaluation. So our teacher group includes classroom teachers, resource, English learner support teachers, and intervention. Their evaluation is based on the SOAR frame. That's the acronym SOAR, S-O-A-R, stands for Strategic Observation and Reflection. And those teachers select from one of three frames. Our enrichment teachers, art, PE, technology, and now performing arts, their evaluation type is also based on SOAR, but adds the standards from their area of specialty. The specialist group encompasses a variety of practitioners, school psychologists, social workers, speech language pathologists. There's a whole group there. School nurses, SDC, peer facilitators, PLSTs, preschool SDC, and program specialists. All of those evaluation types are based on domains that are tied to the profession. And our last category are the early childhood, and that's the preschool and transitional kindergarten teachers. Their evaluation type is based on the CLASS tool. That's the classroom assessment scoring system. All right. So this year, classroom teachers represent majority of the participants with 58%. The next largest group are our specialists at 24%. The early childhood educators and enrichment teachers each at 9%. As part of RTPGS, we also monitor how often practitioners participate in the growth cycle. Within the growth system, there are 4 different tracks. So track 1 include our temporary, intern, and probationary practitioners, and they participate in the program every year until they reach permanent status. Track 2 is our permanent practitioners with 3 to 9 years experience. They participate every other year. Track 4 are permanent practitioners with 10 to 14 years experience in Robla. They participate every 3 years. And finally, we have our new track 4, our permanent practitioners with 15 or more years in Robla, and they participate every 5 years. So you can see for the 24-25 school year, the majority of participants are those track 1 intern and probationary employees, 68% this year. Track 2, 23%. Track 3, 9%. And this year, we do not have any track 4 practitioners scheduled for review. That large percentage of track 1, those probationary and interns, is a trend that we continue to see over time. You can see that steady increase of those probationary and interns over the years. In the last few years, it has almost doubled. So my colleague Marcos is going to share a little bit more about the impact of that trend.
Right. Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you everybody for your time. So here we can see the number of practitioners that each facilitator is currently working with. Probationary and intern teachers or practitioners are required to work with a principal or director during their review cycle. And as the last graph illustrated, about 2/3 of this year's practitioners are probationary or intern status. And as a result, our principals and our directors have fairly high caseloads this year. And this graph shows the number of participants over the past few years as well as projections for the next 2. Each year shows the total number of practitioners broken down into permanent, probationary, or intern status. And if you take a look at this year, year 24-25, compared to our projections for next year, 25-26, you'll notice that the number of probationary and intern teachers looks to go down, whereas the number of permanent status teachers in review will stay about the same. And that's due to the fact that a number of our current probationary status teachers will reach permanent status this year or next year, and they'll be out of cycle until year 26-27, when they'll be back on cycle, and you'll see a pretty large increase in the number of permanent status teachers who will be in review that year. Okay. Oh, one thing to keep in mind, though, is that this data will be somewhat fluid as teachers leave and enter the school district. Oh, wrong way. There we go. Practitioner feedback is very important to the professional growth system. Practitioners have access to an anonymous feedback form, which allows them to share thoughts about what's helped them throughout the review cycle, as well as make suggestions as to ways we can improve the program. Cheryl shared some examples earlier of ways that practitioner feedback helps us refine the program. A couple additional resources we created this year. Goal setting menus and frontline walkthrough videos are the result of feedback we receive from practitioners. And here are some comments that were submitted last review cycle. If you wouldn't mind taking just a quick moment to read over those. As you can see, these comments illustrate some of the benefits practitioners are seeing from participating in the review cycle, as well as some suggestions that have been made to help us develop supports for them. As for next steps, we'll continue to use that feedback from practitioners to refine and improve the system, as well as develop an inclusion specialist evaluation type, which is going to be tailored to the specific responsibilities of that role, which is fairly new to the district. And thank you for hearing the current status of the Robla Teacher Professional Growth System. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Questions?
I do not have anything at this time. Thank you.
Absolutely.
One question. I see the number of people, teachers who retire every year, but I never really track that. So how does that, I mean, how many do we lose per year and gain that impact these numbers?
That does impact, unfortunately, our crystal ball's not great.
Yeah.
In terms of like the comings and goings, so as one practitioner retires, then we would have a new one come in, and then they start at that track one where they're more frequent. It depends on like who's being replaced. If it's somebody with a lot of experience that only is every 5 years versus somebody who was maybe a year 3 and every other year. So there's about 143 different balls.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a moving target.
But you haven't noticed any like anomalies, right? Like, it's kind of going down and up or way down or anything.
Well, with the year 2021, there was a bit of a drop as a result of the pandemic and the rollout of the system happening around the same time. And so that's leading to a little bit of a ebb and flow of the number of people who are practitioners at any given point.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Okay. Item C, 2024-25 school plan for student achievement, or a SIPS update.
What's school first? There's 3 presentations.
Good evening, Robla School Board members, Superintendent Chen. I think you all know me. I'm Lisa Hall. I'm the proud principal at Bell Avenue School. And tonight I'm going to give a brief update on our data and our response to data and its connection to our school site plan.
So in this first slide, it's an overview of the ELA CASP data for the past 3 years. When we look at this slide, we should not only be looking at the trend in the grade level data, but comparing the same group of students as they promote throughout the grades. I've included some bullet points highlighting some of the school's response to data. And I want to point out that Bell Avenue continues to focus on GLAD strategies as we feel they benefit all students at our sites, but especially our EL students. I also want to highlight our practice of examining data as a staff as we receive it. As soon as we receive it, we're looking at it, and teachers are identifying areas of growth as well as deficit areas and individual students who are not making appropriate progress and planning interventions and supports that are happening in the classroom. So the tier 1 interventions, setting goals for the students, and then revisiting progress monitoring and revisiting at the mid-tri and then again at trimester. And the teachers share out at, so at our next staff meeting, which is Tuesday, they'll share out their progress in comparison to the goal that they set for the students that they were had identified as students needing those tier 1 interventions. So that's coming up next staff meeting. So those are just a couple of things, but we have quite a few things that we do to respond to the data as we're receiving it. Okay, so the second slide here is our ELA scores for the past 3 years by subgroup. One of the subgroups I want to highlight tonight is our students with disabilities. As you can see, the students in this subgroup, the data has been trending downward for 3 years. So that's something as a staff that we are highly focused on, trying to find ways to bridge what is happening in general education classrooms with the students' IEP goals and the instruction that they're receiving in special education. So we feel as a staff in our conversations, we feel that we are struggling to make the grade level materials accessible to the students so that when they're in the gen ed classroom, they're participating and as engaged as they need to be in order to show that growth. So we're working to create more opportunities for collaboration between our special education specialists and our gen ed teachers. And we're also using AI quite a bit at this point to take grade level material and then simplify directions and things like that so that kids are able to access the grade level curriculum or grade level content standards, and work independently in the classroom. So that's just one or a couple of strategies that we're using. So for this next slide, this is our math data. Again, it's over a 3-year period of time, and we are looking at not only the grade level spans, but we're looking at groups of kids that are promoting through, as they promote through the grade level. We, as a staff, again, we're tracking and analyzing data as quickly as we receive it, and then planning tier 1 interventions, setting individual goals, and then reporting out as a staff and at mid-tri and trimester. We also really encourage the use of exit tickets or, as like a quick check as frequently as possible so that we're easily identifying kids that need that support right away. Because in math, it's hard to, as they may take like a unit 1 test on multiplication and then unit 2 test might be on geometry. So they're changing the focus of the curriculum standards or the grade level standards changes frequently as they're moving through the curriculum, and so you're not really comparing the same standards often. And so we want to make sure that we're quickly identifying kids that maybe didn't get it so that we can help support them immediately because the next unit is probably not necessarily going to be based on the same standards, and we want to make sure that they get it before we move on. Okay, so this slide here is a 3-year comparison by subgroup. And again, I want to highlight that our students with disabilities at Bell Avenue School are not making progress, the expected progress. And so again, we're really focused on that particular group of kids, making sure that they're not only are the general ed teachers highly aware of their IEP goals, but also how can we bridge what's happening in the gen ed classroom to what's happening in the special education department, and finding ways to, again, make sure that when our students with disabilities are in their general ed classroom, that they're accessing the curriculum and they're as engaged as they engaged learners in the classroom. Okay, so that's something that we're really focused on and working on. Okay, the next slide here is an overview of our English language the progress for our English language learners. And overall, our students made small growth or they remained the same. The only place that we saw a little bit of a decrease, and it was a good decrease, was we were looking at English language learners who decreased 1 LPAC level. We saw a decrease in that score, which was good. But overall, we're not seeing any major changes, small increases, or they're remaining the same. One thing that we're looking at Bell, and I'm sure they're doing this at the other schools as well, is our teachers have the ability to look at the LPAC, like the IABs, like practice tests, and that's not something that we've done in the past. So that's something we're just starting to scratch the surface on, and that would be all of our teachers in grades 1 through 6 are going to be working in advance with the kids so that the kids, when they see the test, they have more familiarity with it. In the past, we've done a lot of work with IABs for CASP testing, but not the LPAC. So we're going to try it this year and see if it helps a little bit. Okay, so our next goal is for increasing parent involvement. And this slide just shows a few of our strategies that we're using to increase parent involvement. Probably the biggest difference this year is that we're really using our SCOE caregiver, our family navigator, and she has been presenting parent workshops at our school. It's not quite once a month. There'll be 6 by the end of the school year. And these are just kind of a list of what has happened so far. We did kind of an overview of school tools and supports for caregivers. Just last week, we did cyberbullying and social media safety. And then in the future, they're going to start talking about building a safe school community. They're doing a workshop on SEL, navigating separate households. We have a lot of kids that are living in split households. And so she's going to present a workshop on how to navigate that and continue to support the kids in school. And then the last one, the focus is going to be on substance use awareness.
Sorry, split household?
Meaning students are going back and forth between 2 households. So we often have students that have, even a simple thing as a backpack or, school tools or things like that. They're struggling to navigate having to travel back and forth between, midweek transfers between parents and things like that. So she's going to give some strategies and talk about that, like not only organizational strategies, but communication and things like that that we have found can be really challenging. This next week, we have a big family event coming up. It's our Explore It Science Night. It's usually very well attended, and that's next Thursday from 6 to 7:30, if anyone's interested in coming. Okay, the last one, this is our last slide. This is about school climate and student engagement. The graph that you see up there is our Bell Avenue attendance for the last 2 years. This is our actual attendance, not our dashboard attendance. So the graph you'll see is it's organized by the past 2 years and it's organized by subgroup. You can see that we have seen improvement from 1 year to the next. Overall, we are just slightly below 94% attendance rate at Bell Avenue. And we have experienced a positive trend in attendance in all subgroups. Some of the strategies that we're employing to improve our attendance is earlier intervention. So we're starting at the TK and the kinder level. The other thing that we did a little bit differently this year was we went through all of the report cards with the teachers before parent-teacher conferences, and students that we identified as being, you know, as like, okay, they're not chronically absent yet, but they're kind of on that trend. Mr. Foley and I worked with teachers and just helped them to create some talking points with parents around the attendance data that is on the report card. Also, you know, one of the things at Bell is that we make a point to be very visible as a staff. We're out in front every day of the school, greeting kids as they arrive, and we're out there in front again as they leave. And so the kids know that when they don't come to school, we notice. And I feel like, I mean, it seems like a really simple thing, but it's super important that the kids know that if they don't show up, somebody's going to miss them. So that's something that we make sure that we are greeting kids. If they didn't come, we're asking them, hey, we missed you yesterday. So glad to see you. Welcome back. And then making sure that kids feel that they've been seen and seen every day at school. So, and that they're a part of our school community. And that's all I have. Are there any questions or comments?
I have one or a couple. Why does the attendance report different demographics than the subgroup comparisons?
Pardon me. I guess I'm not understanding your question.
Well, in the subgroup comparisons, you have Black, White, Asian, Hispanic, English learners, students with disabilities.
Because some of our subgroups don't have enough students in them, and so the data doesn't show up because it's too it doesn't show up because it is in jeopardy of like almost identifying individual students because the subgroups are so small.
Okay. And forgive me for not recalling or remembering how many, or the demographics, but how many students with disabilities do you have?
Yeah. Like 50, yeah. 50 to 60 kids. There's a crossover between speech and language, and then we've got our SDC class as well as our RSP students. So probably more than that, actually.
Okay. Cute. Thank you.
Sure.
Yay. Good evening, board member, Superintendent Chen, Ramon. My name is Michelle Chris. I am the principal at Taylor Street Elementary, and I am here to present our SIPS update for December, January 2025. Hope I do this right. There we go. So first couple slides are our room for improvement slides. This is our current dashboard, and we're focusing just on the four demographic groups: African American, student with disabilities, EL, and homeless. What we're doing currently, as you can see, there's some orange and red there, is peer observations. Our focus, our site focus for K2 is phonics, and our grades 3 through 6 is reading comprehension. Our WIN focus, which is what I need, is implemented and is structured 30 minutes a day. The focus is also phonics and book clubs, so reading comprehension, things of that nature. Our extended day, which is our K2, is also on phonics. So that word phonics is coming up quite a bit because we saw the need as a staff for that foundational piece with reading. Additionally, we are partnered with SCOE. Ku Vang was here yesterday, working with primarily our new teachers around phonics, the phonics lesson, and she'll come and observe along with our admin on Monday of those teachers doing the lesson in a form of our own internal kind of peer observations, but really it's going to be Ku Vang and the admin with our new teachers around the lesson that we, with her, formulated yesterday around phonics. Again, we have PLST support, PD for ELA. Shannon Cannon just did a wonderful PD around, again, phonics. And our teachers really had really great feedback around that. Similar to Bell, every staff meeting, we are talking about data, and teachers are bringing data to the staff meetings. And we're using that to help drive our instruction. In addition, we have an addition this year of our African American community outreach, and I put her on there because she does provide additional support for the group, the African Americans. In addition, there are other students she does see, but primarily her outreach is with African American students. Any questions? Okay, our other slide for improvement is just increased math. So this one we're moving in the right direction. Math peer observations, I put that down because we were really heavy on that last year. And so internally we've done a couple with teachers, group grade level teachers have done it with each other around math. So, and again, staff meetings, we are talking about data. So they're bringing data to the different staff meetings, and we're using that to help drive our instruction as a group. Again, I'm mentioning our African American community outreach. She's pulling groups as well in support for all subjects. And I just wanted to acknowledge that that's happening. We have our intervention support as well. She's helping with, we have quite a few combo classes this year. We have a 2-3 and a 4-5. In addition to our gate classes, which are 3-4 and a 5-6. So our intervention support has really been helping with the math support in that with our second graders. And then our accounting collections, making sure we are kind of honing in on that and continuing that for that basic math foundational skills with our kiddos. What's not on here is our African Americans did double, increased their scores from last year, and along with our homeless students as well. So with our ELPI, again, there was some consistency on the bottom part of this graph, but up top, we have some work to do, and so there is an intentional focus on ELD. I mentioned WIN, which is our win time, what I need, that's our designated down below ELD portion. And this year, what's different is we're utilizing our Wonders curriculum, using those assessments for each section, as you will, around ELD. And so we're using that data, and we're also bringing that to our staff meetings as we kind of, when time is fluid, looking at how our ELs are reading and writing and speaking as well. And then our EL teacher pulls what we call a second dose of students. So she'll see students earlier in the day and then also in the afternoon as well. And then again, we have our designated and integrated ELD throughout the day. And so these are the slides I was really looking forward to. I was looking forward to all of them, but our increase in parent involvement, those top two pictures are what we implemented called Walking Wednesdays. So every Wednesday morning before the school bell rings, parents are out walking with students. And it's a really great sight to see because it's in, promoting health, but then also a sense of community that parents are, and they're wanting to do it. In fact, they ask for more days, but we're right now just working with the Walking Wednesdays. I'm mentioning our AACA is also there with outreach, our Parent Square communication that has been happening. I also want to acknowledge our BCOAs. They've been doing a great job with outreach as well for different various events. Our school event on the bottom left was our winter festival that happened in late December. We had a great turnout. In fact, it was really warm in our cafeteria. And next year, we're thinking of maybe splitting the presentations for primary and intermediate. Primary and intermediate because it was filled to capacity, probably over. And then on our bottom, we have various events. That was our Ready for Robla, not Ready for Robla, but it was our event with United Way, where families came out, which was a really great event. And from there, we've gained partnerships with the Sacramento Public Library, where our Remix Dance group performed a Kwanzaa event. Sac Republic has come out and worked with our students because of this event. We've had great back to school events. Our Harvest Festival was wonderful. I want to acknowledge it's not on here, but our PTO and our ELAC and School Site Council has increased in parent participation. We just had a mental health workshop on Tuesday. It was great. We had quite a few parents show up for that, and that was in connection with our SCOE clinicians. We're encouraging reading buddies starting next month for parents to come and read with their child or another student a couple days a week. We have a lot of parent participation on field trips. And then parents have been reaching out to help with school beautification as well. So we're going to be starting on projects to help beautify our school. Next, our student building school climate and pupil engagement. This is a really great, I guess you say, chart for me, or table. It shows us in the blue and green with suspensions. That means those aren't happening as much as they used to. And a lot of that is give a shout out to the staff and just the overall culture at Taylor Street with the implementation of our restorative room and practices school-wide. We didn't have the room per se the beginning of the year just because of spacing, but we were still able to continue that restorative approach with students. Our PBIS assemblies, we have those once a month, various character traits. We have culture assemblies as well. This is something new we started. Student store is active and running. Students love that. It's every Friday. They can earn PBIS points and go and shop at the store. We had Sammy Circuit came. The students love him. He's a celebrity. And he's really positive and encouraging students to make great decisions. We have our Fun Fridays and then our parent communication. In fact, we've been using Parent Square quite a bit this year. So I think that's all it's helping and contributing to our overall school culture. And my last slide would be, this was a twin day and they all have on their perfect attendance shirts. It would be our attendance. I think that's huge. I give a huge shout out to my SART team, which consists of my assistant principal, front office, and my social worker who do a wonderful job holding SART meetings and SARB, just making sure those are happening and then following through. We have a script that our front office uses when students are absent. We have attendance incentives. And then again, the parent communication, similar to what Lisa shared about the attendance. We're going in the right direction with our attendance. I'm very proud of our community over at Taylor Street, and I'm hopeful we continue this route. I did not get to put my picture this week we took for our attendance, but it's out there. And thank you. If you have any questions.
Thank you.
I have, on the suspension page, you've got 4 demographics. 3 of them went to 0, and African Americans, it went down, but it's still at 1.2%.
Mm-hmm.
Are there, what about the other demographics? Did they all go to 0, or?
They all went to 0.
So African American is the only one that's still not 0?
Yeah. but I think I want to say I believe this year it is. But yeah, so the African Americans were only, and I'm trying to think back because I know the students so well. But I think what's happening too, in addition to having our AACOA building relationships with students and families and making that connection is going to be, I know it is a great addition to that, so that that can eventually go down to 0 as well.
Okay, so can you talk about the 1.2?
1.2, I'm trying to think about when that was. I think it was probably a beginning of the year student. And I want to say using our Swiss data, we were able to kind of work with the student. And then after that, there was no repeat of that 1.2 student.
So the 1.2 represents one student.
One student. Yeah, and it was in the beginning of the year.
You mentioned the Sac Public Library. What are you doing with them?
So they've been coming out. Well, they came out last semester, and they've been working with the students around soccer skills, and the students love it. They, in fact, they bring their own soccer balls and they sign them and things like that. But that came about.
The public library?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you said Soccer Public. I'm soccer balls. So the SAC Public Library, her name was Ashley. She was the branch manager. She was at the, like I said, the United Way event. And I just asked her, I said, we want partnership with you. So my whole school has done a field trip to the Del Paso Heights Library. We made that happen with her. And a lot of the students, that was the first time going to a public library. And I realized most of them said, oh, I could walk there. You know, I didn't know that was there. And then from that, she invited us to perform our remix dance group to perform at the Kwanzaa celebration. And then she would also like to come to the Black History Month dinner and just do partnerships. She did say the library will be closing and she would like to do on Wednesdays a STEM class for the community. So I will talk with Gerardo about making that happen as well.
The library will be closing?
Yeah, they're remodeling the parking lot.
Oh.
So,
Marysville one? I mean, the
Del Paso Heights. Mm-hmm.
The Grand Avenue one.
Grand Avenue, yeah. In fact, they were supposed to do it in December, but they pushed it back to March. So she wants to use, she asked if she could use my, the library at Taylor, I think 3 to 4 on Wednesday.
Okay, so temporary closing.
Temporary.
Not
Yeah, yeah, sorry.
And was there an increase in library cards and things?
In fact, before they went, we had them fill out library applications. And so when they got there, they were able to give them an actual library card. Huge increase, yeah. Which is what I wanted. I mean, we're pushing, as you can see, the phonics and the reading for our kiddos. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Crispy, I have a question. Maybe I'm confused with these numbers. We're talking about the ELA and the math. When you put this number 65 minus 65.8, that is students' percentage of, we're talking about, is a percentage or
It's a percentage. No. Oh, points from the, yeah, from the standard. So
yes. Okay.
points from the standard that they didn't score
this
on.
This is how much low of the standard.
Yeah, from the standard that they didn't meet. Yeah.
Right.
Other questions?
So no category or no group was hitting standards? Is that what you're saying? They're all way below?
All way below. Mm-hmm. And in particular, because we're focusing just on these 4, but yeah. And according to the little picture up top, yeah, it says overall Taylor is in the orange for math and ELA. But these particular groups, this is their points away from standard.
But when you read homeless, in 2023, they were they were 97 points from standard, moving to 89.7. So they've made growth. It's still distance from standard,
Correct.
But I'm going to celebrate the little growth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we just. Okay.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Robla School Board, Superintendent Chen, for the time. As you look at the Robla Mustangs emblem, we are second in academic performance to Bell Avenue Tigers. We are coming after them. If you're out there on the YouTube, go Mustangs. But Lisa, I just want to say thank you for your glad, so thank you. So for Wow. And I've got to tell you, I just had my eyes checked yesterday and I have a cataract. So it's kind of blurry. Do you mind if can I work that way? You mind if I stand up that way and talk to you guys? Is that okay if I go over there closer to the screen?
I take
I apologize.
the microphone. They can't hear you.
Oh, they cannot
No,
hear
they
you.
can't hear
They
you.
cannot hear you in the.
So,
Disgusting.
this is kind of embarrassing. So don't enjoy this. So, we have just made a bold decision, and you must know that in our district, 80% of our third graders can't read. That's the whole district. We have made a bold decision to increase our resources, the intervention teacher, and start supporting K through 2. So it's put pressure on 3 through 6 to do more small group instruction in the classroom.
Can
But
you please repeat that? 80%
yes.
of our third graders cannot read?
So we can look at the dashboard later, but we have it, when you look at the CASP testing to read at grade level, it's what, and so we have to do different things differently. So we are supporting K through 2, and we'll talk more about that. You can see one of the groups we're kind of keeping an eye on. We know our students with disabilities. With Mr. Penman's support, we had the Shannon Cannon go in and work with them and help them identify groups. So they know the standards, they know their students, and they know how to group their students per the standard. This year, we taught the parents how to use Clever. So at back to school night, we had 2. We had one for primary and one for intermediate. And so those families now know how to use the online platform. And we also did that as one of our SCOE nights. We've increased student recognition and awards with prizes for Lexia, the reading platform. And then also at our PBIS assemblies. We haven't been doing a great job teaching students how to take the test. So all teachers receive their student ID cards, their state ID, so they can take the practice test, and they are expected to do that starting this month in January. And our teacher meetings are more explicit to accurate support, so students have access to the curriculum. The other thing, in February, we have GLAD training. We know that our students don't perform well in writing and responding to nonfiction text, and that's a big part of the CASP. So our February 4th training is specific to writing. In math, there's a book, Douglas Reeves. It's all about when you have PLC times in the professional learning communities, are specifically about math. We don't do all of other school sites do a lot of different things in PLCs. Ours are specific to math. So the teacher looks at how they're teaching math. They work with their grade level partner. They look at their math tests. The other thing we're focusing this year is having more kinesthetic and visual things for students. So it's a more dynamic delivery. We really appreciate Mr. Penman's support for our PLST. The last couple of days, we've done instructional rounds where the instructional barriers between teachers goes down, and teachers see, like, there's a buzz on our campus because Miss Malvini, she did this amazing first grade math lesson, and guess what? Everybody's talking about it. And it's like, wow, everybody's talking about it, like that was a wow performance. And in teaching, you don't get that feedback. So I went up to her today and had that like face to face, like, wow, you wowed people. We are increasing the usage of MobiMax. MobiMax is a platform where you can just specifically track kids on math facts. You can set it up to whatever they need to work on. Lexia Reading, we've underutilized Lexia Reading. It's a professional, really expensive reading tutor set up by a speech language pathologist. So we are more intentionally using that. The one thing I wanted to mention is if you take the third grade math test, it is reading dependent. So we know that these scores are kind of connected together. So like we said before, we're going to be test taking pros to overtake the Bell Tigers. I did say that. Okay, so on to English language learners. Our site has a lot of students that aren't making great progress and they're flat. So in the past, we've had WIN rotations, and WIN is where every student on campus for 30 minutes gets what they need, including the EL students. But those rotations, sometimes depending on absences or a teacher that has a change in a schedule, have like broken. This year I've covered, Ms. Coyle I've covered, so when rotations don't cancel, so the students, we continue that rotation. I talked about the GLAD training. They're going to do something that will help scaffold or support EL students on February 4th. And then we're going to sit down and have face-to-face discussions with the ELs, those students, so they understand why they don't want to be a sixth grader and not be exited out of EL. So when they go to middle school and go to Norwood, they have a choice on what classes they take, and they don't have to take English twice. The other things that the students, they don't always know that if they do well in the LPAC, but they don't do well on the CASP, and they don't put forth their best effort, that can keep them there, and they won't be exited. Okay, parent involvement is something that we know we have to improve on. Our big thing is SCOE collaboration. We have a charter bus coming to our school site tomorrow because SCOE likes what we're doing for family engagement and parent engagement. There's going to be people from all over Northern California to see what Marcy Basia has done with her intern. And they've had 4 family nights, and they've had 4 collaborations where they meet with families and talk about financial literacy. They just sit and talk. I emailed Superintendent Chin because one of them, through an interpreter, shared they really felt fear about coming to school in this political climate, and it just kind of, so it's been a really great access for our biggest student group and family group is our Hispanic families. So we've done similar to Michelle with PBIS assemblies. We have character traits, and we are intentionally finding students that maybe have never got an award and making sure that our awards are inclusive, and we find all students being successful. We utilized our intern, Mr. Abraham, to help make community survey phone calls. He's bilingual, and we wanted our biggest family group is they speak Spanish. We needed to know, so I personally asked him to make a lot of phone calls. We need you to do this survey. We want to know what help you need. Mr. Raven's been really supportive. We've had multiple conversations about community schools. Mr. Gapp's really excited about community schools, so we've had it many times in our school site council meetings. We've recruited new members, and we have a Robla parent teacher club, and we've had our family movie night that was well attended, and then February 7th we have a dance for get your cowboy boots ready. It's called the Robla Roundup. So it's our dance. Okay, our build our school climate and student engagement. I'm really excited. Our team, we have people getting support and learning building capacity. Our PBIS team and our MTSS teams, they were today at a check-in, check-out, and if you don't know what that is, for students that don't feel connected to school, we pair them with a staff member, and they check in with them and they check out. We've the whole staff. We've taught our teachers about the 10-2 plan, and I have 4 students right now that are on that plan. And what you do is you go, and for 10 days straight, you go out of your way, you find them, and you spend 2 minutes with them. You don't talk about school, you don't talk about their schoolwork, you talk about them as a person, and you try to see students. So we're training our teachers and all of our staff to do that. I'm really proud of, for chronic absenteeism, Stephanie Coyle, our assistant principal, and Hillary Crook have probably had 40 family meetings to talk about how we can support them with attendance. And like I spoke previously, we've increased student acknowledgement at the PBS assemblies. Right now, our big thing is we have a student assembly. We're not doing the assemblies anymore. We have a group of students that are planning assemblies. And we know from CASA and from another, administrative training that I went to, like it works better when the students run things and the students have a voice, including the cafeteria. So we're trying to hand over some of our leadership to the students. So in summation, I just want you to know that our number one agenda on my staff agenda every week is staff self-care. We've had some really interesting, we did restorative practices last year. We trained staff, so we do like community circles. And wow, it really gives you the temperature of what's happening at a school site. We did one after break. We had all kinds of stuff that just came out about how people's break went, some celebration, some, and it really just helps you know what's happening with your staff. But one of those community circles is always talking about what are we doing to take care of ourselves in education, where you can give endlessly. We know we have to improve school climate. Number two, I'm going to blame on Chuck because it got erased. And I'm kidding, Chuck. Our math instructional rounds, we're really excited about that. Thank you. The one thing I didn't mention, which has been really great for our staff so far, thanks to Janet, is Sam Drazen. As you can imagine, every one of our brains in here being neurodivergent, and every one of us thinking about something different than probably what I'm saying. That's what the teachers are up against. And so our teachers are learning, like, you can't just force it. You have to teach it differently. So we really appreciate that opportunity. And some of the teachers aren't liking it because they like to teach how they teach. But that doesn't work for all students. We really like the opportunity of collaborating with Scully, with Ms. Marcy Basia. But you have to know, Robla, we have to do a better job with our school environment. It has to be great. And right now it's good. Our parent involvement, we have to give parents more opportunities and teach parents how to help us. And then I talked about our instructional walls and barriers. And lastly, us changing with community schools, like changing our perspective. Like the community schools, and thanks to Mrs. Chen, is not like what's wrong with the community. It's like, how do we build assets? It's like there are assets out there, like really great families and really great cultures. But how do we recognize that and build on that? Okay. Mr. Pittman, did I go over my 7 minutes? You didn't time me? Okay. Any questions? And I'm honestly embarrassed about being up there, so don't think that this was planned. My eyes, I couldn't read them. I'll have glasses. The next one.
I'm still. You said 80% of our students can't read. After that, I kind of, yeah.
So I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on that. I'll let somebody.
The students can obviously read in third grade. A lot of them are all reading. They're not proficiency. So when you said 80%, I believe it was something about proficiency on the test.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the
How
question.
low on the CASP are they? Like, what grade level are third graders falling at? Like, are they at kindergarten level, first grade level? Or
So I don't know. My computer's right there. I could pull up the Lexia and show you, but I think what the Lexia is already differentiating for those students. I think, like Mr. Penman, somehow I think it's something that Superintendent Chin is thinking about. It's something that we have to know, that there are that many students, like 70%, that when they take the CASP, it's really challenging because it's hard for them to read at grade level. in that grade level, third grade. Some of those, I taught third grade.
Are
So
we not identifying students who need IEPs or testing kids to see if they have like dyslexia or other reading comprehension skills in this grade level? Like, how is 80% of our students this far behind on a basic need? They will never succeed in math or science or anything if they cannot read to proficiency.
I agree. And I do, but I do know that Janet supports us. We have SSTs, a student study team meetings. I was in three IEPs today. So it's like we have all those meetings, but I'm telling you, there is something there, and it might be in community schools where we can have a better connection with SAC Library. We can have more exposure to print. I think when you look at some of the data, and it could be the preschool and having more families and better outreach and more of our students participate. We could go on and talk about this a lot, but what we know is there's a couple things that happened. We at Robla had a couple years where we didn't have a lot of students that went to preschool. So when we came in and Mr. Pittman could show you the data, there were students that no letters and no sounds. Now, if you go to Roseville, you go to Elk Grove, most of those students, like 4 are reading. So right away we're behind. The other factor is summer. So students learn a lot, and then there's a dip between kinder and first. And
This isn't the average in other districts. This isn't the norm, is it?
I know that we can do that and get you those numbers. And if you want me to do a little report, I will do that for you.
I would really
for the board.
I would appreciate that because 80% is unacceptable.
Well, I'm going to say.
I'm sorry, I'm about to cry.
Well, I know Mr. Raven and I have, and I'm telling you it's serious. But in ours, we're at 28. We're at 28% of third grade. Wherever it was last year. So it is something. But
Okay. Well, thank you for letting us know.
Okay. Thank you.
We can definitely give an update. I think we need to also just provide some clarity too. I'm not excusing the data. When we say the number of students can read versus being at grade level standards, right? So I do agree that, as Mr. Penman said, our students are reading. The question that we're looking at is reading comprehension as well as fluency and understanding their grade level standards. So Mr. Cap stated probably, if I look at the data, 28% of his grade level, third graders were meeting standards. That is correct, that 72 are not. But the comment about that they are unable to read, I think we need to look more into that versus they are unable to read or comprehend at their grade level. And as I was looking at backtracking, last year's third graders were pre-K, TK during COVID, right? So the following year, when their kindergarten was distance learning, 2021, and we do know that their instruction was compromised, and that the phonics, the phonemic awareness is focused on K through 2, right? So not making excuses, but I will say that we probably will come back and provide some clarity regarding being able to read versus reading at grade level standards and comprehension at grade level.
This breaks my heart.
I get that, it's not that I get that they can read, and there's a difference between reading and reading at grade level, but that's, that's at the point of major intervention.
And not making any excuses, but I would also like to put some things into perspective, thinking about what were those deficiencies 5 years ago, 6 years ago, because I think that would also help to create some clarity as well, and looking at what those numbers look like across the state. When we're looking, or what those numbers look like in districts that are in similar communities as ours. So I think all of those things. I think when you say like, oh, like, you know, kids in Roseville and Oak Grove, like we know that those are affluent communities and they can afford more interventions than what our kids can afford. So I think we also have to give ourselves some grace as well, and trust that our teachers are doing the best that they can to support our students.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I had a hard trying to because I've been in the board almost 11 years, and I'm not politicians. I'm not here because make money. I'm not here for no reason. I'm just here for the kids. And when I see all these numbers and these data and this 12% the kid pass, 25%, 29%, 39%, I don't see as a percentage. I see as a kid, as a life of children. They are behind. They're living behind. And as a school board member, I said, you know, I'm there just to support them, whatever they need, whatever we need to provide them to make their life easier. They need help, economic, social. They need social workers. They need more teachers, more support, more books, more Chromebooks, whatever it is. I'm willing as a school board to give it to them. And when you see these numbers, they never change. I've been here for 11 years, and it's not just here, it's everywhere. What are we doing wrong? What is happening? How are we feeling as a school, as a school boards, as a parents, as a teachers, as a children? What are we doing? We are not making any difference years to years to years and years, and we are downhill. And as a nation, all over. So something has to change. I don't know what is it, but we need to find that link. They allow us to provide this kid or get these kids out of the hole because they are in a hole. We as adults are responsible for it. So I know, and I'm proud of our school, and I've been here for, like I said, so many years. And I think we have wonderful teams. I think we have wonderful teachers. I think we have the best intentions. We want to do the best, but we are not seeing. We are not seeing it, and it's getting worse. So I don't know if you guys, anybody have ideas or things or perspective, something that we can do, because that's depressing as depressing as a parents, as a mother, as a grandmas, and as a nation. It's depressing that we are going in downhill, and we need to. These kids deserve, and we as a nation, we deserve to get better. So whatever it takes. I don't know. One, let's pick some ideas. And I don't take me wrong. I see percentage here, percentage there, and it's great and it's good, and kudos for it. But a percent here, percentage there, and it's awesome. But also too, it's also a percentage they're not reaching. A big percentage they're not reaching. We're not reaching this kid, and is what's going to happen when they're 18 or 20, 21. They're going to go to college. They're going to fail. We are failing it. And this is my report. This is my report. When I see you guys reading, and these numbers are my report. I'm feeling it. I feel like we're not doing enough. And I know you guys. I know you guys has the best heart and the best things and the best intention, but the results are not there. And it is.
Please tell us
it's
what
hard.
you need for us to do to help our students.
And I said, parents. I always said it's a tripod. School, parents, children. It's a tripod. We need all three legs to be together. And something is missing. I don't know what has to change, but we need to do something.
Well, I would just like to say thank you to Superintendent Chen, because that's how this cabinet year started, with that, us putting that data up there, and us going, what are we gonna do? So this, for us out here, is not new, and I apologize for not being clear, but I do think that community schools, and like you're talking about, somebody, myself, who's been in this district in the classroom for over 20 years, Mr. Reyes and I sat and talked about how students weren't in their seats ready to learn. There were other things going on in families that needed support, and trauma that today at Robla is being served by a mental health clinician, where before there there were students in trauma under Mr. Pendon's
Mhm.
direction, and that was a really good school, but there was trauma there that was not ever looked at. So just know that Superintendent Chen, she brought this forward to us at cabinet meeting, beginning of the year, said, look, here's the number, how we did on the CAS, and what are we gonna do? So it's something that we're all in query about.
Mhm.
We know things have to be done.
You have to, something.
I appreciate this space though, and the authentic part of how honest it is, and people that, and I know I've said too much.
And the group that talked earlier, who said Mr. Cook, Mrs. Cook, and I was wish they were here, and they should be here because these numbers are important, and they should be seen because they are who helping the teacher to help the I think that was important. And sometimes I want to, sometimes meetings are long when you understand that, and it's important for them to be here and listen what's going on. I think, like I said, our principal we have beautiful great professionals person. We have smart people. We have so much in this basket to offer, but we need to put our brain together and try to figure out what's missing here because something is missing and we need to find it.
Yeah, and I there's not much I can add on to what's already been said, and I know that this is the group that we're finding out about how bad it was because they're testing now, and they came in at a disadvantage. But yeah, this is the indicator that there needs to be some kind of something big. I mean, yeah.
And again, I want us to give ourselves some grace. I think there are systemic issues that we don't have any control over that are also impacting reading. And so as we think about what's being done here, I think there are some things that are out of our control that are really impacting how our students are performing on this test that's probably not as culturally relevant and culturally sensitive as we would like it to be. And so I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I just want us to give ourselves some grace. We do have work to do. Like everybody needs to be held accountable, but we also need to give ourselves some grace. So thank you all for your reports. I appreciate that. And again, I think that y'all are doing a fantastic job. So thank you for the work that you do.
Yeah. No, I want to tell thank you too. I don't want to put you guys complete down. I think we have smart, beautiful, big heart people and professional people that we can do better. And something has to change. We have to just find that missing link and see if we can make an impact in our kids because they're going to pay the price. They're paying the price already. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thank you to Mrs. Change because I think it also too is a big spices condiments for our group, and I think in that also things gonna change, right?
Yeah, and I like everything. Well, I mean, I agree with everything that's been said here. You know, I don't. We knew it was coming. We knew that we were going to get the data from the kids who were starting school when COVID hit. We knew that was, and this is just hitting us. That that we need to do something. That is hard. Okay.
Okay, let's keep going. No, we're gonna sleep here.
We're gonna be here all night.
Yeah, no. Facilities update next. Facilities update.
Would you like me to? Good evening. Would we like to wait for the other board member to return?
Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Superintendent Chen. Thank you so much. My name is Gerald Schober. I'm VP Implementation Services, Caldwell Flores and Winters, and with me I also have Noreen Bruno, Senior Program Manager for CFW. We're pleased tonight to present our monthly update for the Facilities Implementation Program. We'll start, I'm sorry, I'm not used to having to be in control. Oop. One on the bottom?
There we go. I'm gonna do a brief overview. Any additional questions or that are required to be in depth, I will, of course, refer to Ms. Bruno. Bell Avenue. The construction is in the final stages, of course. Substantial completion is February 3rd. We did, of course, have an on-site OAC meeting with Miss Superintendent Chen and Mr. Carrillo Castillo in attendance at that. All of the utility points of connections have been made. Remaining sidewalks and asphalt patching will be completed by January 27th. A punch list walk will be held on January 29th, not the 28th. Again, this was prepared about a week or so ago, and so we just finalized that today. We have finalized that the classroom furniture is set to arrive the week of February 10th. Sorry. Any questions on Bell before I move on? Next, this is the projected budget. I was informed that this is the same matrix that was presented last month. There is no change regarding the budget at this time. Moving on to Main Avenue. Upon the request of the district, the architect did generate two options for the building site layout with the purpose of providing a detailed design for district's review until going forward. We did receive two proposals for the modular building, both over budget. CFW and the architect, in conjunction with the district, refined the design. We were able to bring it down. However, it is still slightly over budget. Efforts are underway to continue that value engineering process. In concurrent with this, what we do need to make the board aware of is that this project is funded by a state PSTK grant. That funding deadline is unfortunately March 27th, 2025, which will get down towards the end of this. And to that end, there are certain conditions that we felt that would be required to hit that request for an extension, because we know we will not have the three components required for that particular project to be certified, and then by OPSC, the Office of Public School Construction, and be able to have their complete funding. Those three components are DSA approval, approval of the lease-back contractor, and then, of course, CDE approval. To that end, we have elicited responses for lease-back contractors as well as the modular contractor. We did receive 7 bids from lease-back contractors who were interested in providing services for the lease-back process. We actually do have in-person interviews tomorrow here in the boardroom. Mrs. Bruno, Gerardo, Superintendent Chen, myself, and as well as an additional district consultant will be conducting those interviews for those lease-back contractors. That will allow us to make a recommendation for a lease-back contract at the first board meeting in December. The design from the architect is ongoing with the previously approved design that was approved by the district. As noted on the second to last bullet point, the delays in the design process have required us to request an extension from OPSC and the SAB, State Allocation Board, for the process. There are certain components that we feel that will bolster our argument for that extension. Those processes are that we are in design, that we have submitted to the Division of State Architect the plans for the project, that we do have, in fact, a contract in place for the lease-back contractor and the modular buildings. In discussing this issue with our state aid Division of State of CFW, Greg Norman, I believe most of you do know him, he said that if we can comply with those components, that will bolster our chances to ensure that an extension will be granted by OPSC.
So,
I ran through real quick.
Okay.
Sorry, yes, sir.
Okay, so we need the extension because we're at risk of not being in compliance because of the three components. And the three components, tell me the three components again.
The three components that we really need are an executed purchase agreement for the contractor, DSA approval of the plans, and then the final component, of course, is then CDE approval. And we cannot get that without DSA approval. And we're and Greg and I share an office 3 days a week. And so we have been, going back and forth, but how can we ensure and give Robla the best chance at that extension? And so the furtherance of that is if we have the plans in at DSA, and Noreen has worked extensively with LDA, the architectural firm for the project, and also with the modular contractor to ensure that we can get those plans into DSA. So if we have a contract with the modular contractor, if we have an approval or a submission, pardon me, of the plans to DSA, and we have a lease-back contractor in progress, that will demonstrate to OPSC that we have done everything we can in furtherance towards the goal of achieving the required goals required by OPSC in order to advance that request for the extension.
Okay, so all three of the components we're at risk of not meeting.
We can do everything but the DSA approval.
Okay.
And that's the big thing. And as I said, Noreen might be able to speak a little bit better, but we had worked out and had several meetings with LDA to ascertain that the schedule to get us into DSA will do everything possible. And the reason why is the delay. DSA approval will take approximately 2 to 4 months. And given the deadline of March 27th, we would actually have to have all of those components in place basically today, but at the very, very latest, the end of February. And it's just not going to be possible to have all the plans and the approvals in place prior to that time, because the approval process, per my state aid guru, Greg, is that it's going to take between 4 and 6 weeks. And DSA is just not going to be cooperative in granting us plan approval within that time frame.
Okay. I know that sometimes you've had to call a special board meeting to pass things, but usually we meet all of our deadlines. Why is this one so close? Or why do we have to have an extension? Listen, where did it not work that we have to file an extension?
The reason why it did not work is that there were adjustments to the actual site plan as well as the interior components of the building. We're in Superintendent Chen, Gerardo, and CFW have actually refined the plans and the site plans in order to achieve the district's goals for that particular site. And the process of getting the plans together is normally a 3-month process. And so we were due to the site adjustments, we were just not able to achieve that timeline.
The bathrooms?
The original specs that you all approved for Main Avenue in 2023 didn't have all the requirements for the preschool, right? One of it is the bathrooms. And so we needed to look at the designs to ensure that the preschool specs meet all our requirements. And then we just needed to look at, to make sure that the specs were clear and meet the requirements. And then we needed to, I'm going to say, reallocate some spaces in the other classroom that had extra spaces assigned for something else to meet our needs. So when the RFP went out, it was with the understanding that we didn't have all the required spaces, but when looking at the design, we were able to adjust without any extra spaces attached to the buildings.
Thank you.
So, yeah, and I don't know, sorry, I'm still in a grumpy mood from before, but we've been working on since 2023, so why didn't we get this fixed before?
I'm sorry.
We've been working on this since 2023, so why wasn't this fixed before that we have to file an extension?
I'm sorry, I cannot speak to exactly when the policy memo for Maine was brought before you. I don't know that, but I can tell you that what in conjunction with the district, with senior leadership, Superintendent Chen, is that we have taken lessons learned from Bell and have incorporated this into the main project, which we were not aware of, I believe, at the time of 2023. I think that's a fair statement, Superintendent Chen. Okay, I put you on the spot.
I believe the specs in 2023 were aligned to TK requirements, right? And this is a pre-K TKK. And so the adjustments needed for pre-K were not included in the original specs. So when we went out to bid, it appeared to meet all TKK requirements. And so as Mr. Short, I don't even know, Schrober, I don't know, Ms. Gerald, stated that lessons learned in terms of ensuring that we have pre-K specs, right?
And I would also say that the district in 2023, that site and its alignment and its priorities have also changed since that policy memo was approved back then as well. I think that's also a different thing because we were looking to incorporate as facilities that we were hoping to remove from the district general fund, and trying to incorporate that relief on that, and just we were not able to work through. So we did a refinement of the site design over the past several months to achieve what is the district's intent and what was the requirements for that for the site.
Just for clarity, are you referring to the portable restrooms?
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
okay.
Restrooms,
Yes.
library. There was some additional. The plan as presented did not align with the district's goals that are currently in place.
Okay, and I do get that, there are changes and sometimes we have to refine things. And I do hope that this extension goes through. I just don't understand why it took from 2023 to a deadline in March of 2025 to fix all of it. It seems like that we would be able to catch that and fix that a lot quicker. Especially if we're learning lessons. I mean, we've been doing this for a while, so it just seems like we would be able to catch something like this a lot quicker and fix it and not be so close to missing a deadline or having to file for an extension.
I wish I could answer that. I was not employed by CFW in 2023, to be perfectly blunt, nor was Noreen. So going forward, going back, I cannot answer that. I can only attest to when we began to be involved in the process, which was in the fall of 2024. And once we were engaged and we began to evaluate this process, that's when we began to present the various site plans to the senior district leadership. And that's when that evolving process about what is actually the site plan and how it aligns with district goals.
Okay. I get that, and I guess I mean this has just not been a good night because I mean Yeah, well, we've had, the last
I
item.
tried to, I was gonna have some brevity about saying, I'm hoping I'm bringing you some better news, but,
Well,
I don't think so.
yeah, well, there's that, but there's also, I mean, like, I'm still looking at this. I see a lot of red, on our budget report, and I don't mind overestimating and coming under budget, but I do mind underestimating and going over budget. And so I see a lot of that, and we're not a rich district, and we're not a high performing district. So I'm seeing red. I'm hearing performance underperforming, and I'm seeing this, and so like I said, it's not a good night. So and you're kind of getting a lot of that, but
Yes, sir.
I just don't understand why, if we're seeing things that were starting in 2023 and we're almost missing deadlines in 2025. That's hard to stomach.
You can say unacceptable. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that's unacceptable. Yes. Uh-huh.
Well, and we do have a couple of items on the action item tonight. I believe that was discussed with, previously in order to bring the project closer into the budget, on the action items towards the end of the evening's, agenda. So, we've done, value engineering, and we will continue to value engineer, the process as we go through, both the procurement process for the lease-back contractor as well as the modular contractor.
Yes, and I saw that, and I'll say it then, but I'll say it now too. Thank you for being able to save $100,000. I appreciate that. Maybe that'll be the silver lining in tonight. But yeah, this has been a rough night. Any
You're
other?
allowed to keep from crying. Like, it's okay.
Any other questions or comments or concerns?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And ladies.
Okay. District technology infrastructure update.
Read it.
Yes, please, yes.
Our phones will work forever.
You guys ready to turn the corner?
Yes.
Yes, I already
Okay,
looked.
Let's try it.
Bring it
Let's
on.
try. Let's see. So this got switched on me. What am I doing with this? Okay, that wasn't too hard. Okay.
You got this.
All right. So good evening, board members, Superintendent Chen, folks who are still around. My name is Elliot Lopez. As you know, it's been a while since I've been up here, and I'm your Chief Technology Officer. In this presentation, I'm going to be providing an update on the state of our district technology infrastructure, and I'm going to talk about the hard work that our team is doing to keep things running smoothly. Our team approaches our work with the understanding that technology is a means to an end, and that we wake up in the morning and come to work to support the success of our students. To achieve that mission, we manage many facets of technology that staff, students, and the public interact with in many ways. This includes the infrastructure that we're going to be talking about today, the software and the hardware in use across our schools, offices, and classrooms, the business processes and the standards and protocols that drive the way that we leverage those tools, and the data that reflect the outcomes that result from their use, as will be the focus of my next presentation. Our team focuses on all of these areas every day, and this requires that we work with our peers and our colleagues in different functional areas very closely so that we understand their needs, goals, and priorities, and that we provide the best resources and service possible. What is infrastructure? When we discuss infrastructure in the context of the technology environment, we're generally talking about the data and communications network and the components that make up this network, and that includes the wiring, the copper and the fiber optic wiring, wireless devices such as you see hanging on the ceiling here, network switches and firewalls, components that help to route data and to secure our data, and servers and other tools that tend to reside inside of network cabinets and closets that are generally outside of the view of most folks in the district. The core of our infrastructure, as you can see here, comprises what we call our wide area network, or WAN, and that connects each of our schools through the district office in a structure that's referred to as a hub and spoke based on its appearance. Up until recently, a lot of this infrastructure was in dire need of maintenance and replacement, urgent repair. A lot of it was outside of its service life and support life and began to become generally unreliable. And to address this, we have overhauled and modernized over 80% of our technology infrastructure over the past 2 to 3 years. That includes replacing 2/3 of the network switches in the district, replacing our entire wireless network infrastructure, including extending Wi-Fi to outdoor areas like playgrounds and structures to provide flexible learning environments. We rolled out 169 security cameras, which is 24 times as many as we had before this year, to improve campus safety, to provide principals and office staff with better campus situational awareness, and also to light up our schools a little bit more effectively to make them safe. We rolled out battery backups to protect our equipment that keep the network up during brief power outages, which happens surprisingly frequently in this area. And this year, we're actually replacing an additional 22 legacy network switches under an RFP that just closed. So all of that infrastructure and the individuals at our schools and in the district are connected to the internet via our primary internet connection, which is depicted here. It's a connection maintained by Comcast, and however, it's maintained by Comcast, but it was built by Robla and it's owned by Robla. They basically maintain it for us, and that process of building that out ourselves was possible under a very unique collaborative that exists in this region called BestNet, where we partner with other districts in the region to essentially build our own internet, which we run through SCOE. Data runs through SCOE, and they maintain multiple connections to the outside world, and then they also provide supplemental monitoring to us and support services in real time. And over the past 2 years, we've actually increased our connection to the outside world by a factor of 10 to accommodate the increased reliance that you've heard a lot about today on apps and cloud-based tools for instruction, and other resources across the district that are proliferating very quickly. We've also been very mindful of the need to continue to improve cybersecurity and have upgraded our firewall to ensure that we are protected internally in our district network. All that being said, a short while ago, sure enough, the district unexpectedly lost access to the internet when a construction project outside of Rio Linda High School struck some underground fiber optic cable that carried our connection to SCOE. Thankfully, this didn't happen during the middle of our state testing window, but it definitely was disruptive to our school sites. And so we undertook the process of mitigating the potential for that event recurring by rolling out a second connection to SCOE to the internet via a secondary carrier. In this case, it's AT&T that automatically takes over in the event that our Comcast connection to the outside world fails. And since that was deployed, we have not experienced any significant disruptions to the internet. Oopsie, wrong button. So our infrastructure also includes a third layer of internet connectivity. Our transportation services department actually resides in a leased space that's not owned by Robla, so we have to extend our WAN out to that facility to allow staff to do things like access bus video in real time. They can watch what's happening on the buses live. They can track the buses along their routes, and then obviously they need to have access to other district resources as well. That third high-speed internet connection is actually provided by a third provider to make sure that we have the maximum amount of redundancy there, in this case, Consolidated Communications, and we also happen to have multiplied the bandwidth associated with that connection by 10 times recently as well. I also wanted to mention that we are in the process of extending our network in a pilot program to school buses. And today we have internet connectivity on 3 of our school buses, which allows riders, students or adults to have Robla provided internet connectivity while they're on the bus, whether it be moving or parked. That's a service that we have collaborated with T-Mobile on to look at as a possibility to continue to allow access to internet connectivity for students who might be on the bus for considerable periods of time. Okay, the final significant component of our infrastructure is our telephony system, which has become a topic of discussion of late. It's certainly a priority for us right now because of issues that we have been experiencing with our vendors' infrastructure. Recently, we began to experience outages during periods of heavy rain because the rainwater was entering the cables. It was permeating the cables on the telephone poles, and it was also entering the junction boxes that are on the sides of the roads. As you're driving down the road, they were actually being flooded, and it was causing our circuit, our telephone circuit, to fail. So the first time we experienced this issue last year, we brought AT&T in. We had a fairly prolonged outage. They did some extensive work. It took a considerable amount of time. At the end of that period, service was restored, and we were assured that the problem was corrected. It did not recur. So we took the vendor's word that the problem was corrected. And that was until it started to rain again the following year. So it started to rain again, and lo and behold, the problem returned. And then we began working with AT&T again. And what we learned during our interaction with them this go around is that they did not fix the root cause of the problem initially, but rather applied essentially a Band-Aid solution. And the reason for this is that AT&T is divesting themselves of the type of service that we currently have in place, the type of connectivity that we use for telephony. They basically are no longer actively maintaining these circuits and won't touch them until something goes wrong with them. And their maintenance and service procedures deprioritize these types of circuits. Essentially, they are only providing what we call in the business world a minimum viable product to comply with their contractual obligations under the state contract that governs this type of circuit, which was acquired a really long time ago, in hopes that folks will migrate off.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you said state contract in hopes that people will migrate. So I'm a little confused. Okay, if it's a state contract, then who's migrating off?
So essentially what happens is that, the state goes out to bid, and vendors, the lowest cost vendor will receive these state contracts. And then when we go out to obtain these types of services, we basically piggyback on these state contracts. This is a very old contract on a technology that they no longer support. No new customers acquire this type of a circuit. So we're basically on a legacy product. So what they're doing is essentially minimizing the amount of resources that they're allocating internally and dedicating to the maintenance and support of these legacy circuits in hopes that eventually folks will move off of them.
Okay, so what you're saying is the state provided or contracted and got this structure, and then we came along and said, okay, we'll take this service and we'll pay for this service.
Yeah, it's a state bid, like an umbrella contract that other public agencies can piggyback on, and it basically ensures that everyone is receiving equitable pricing as intended to ensure that we're receiving the lowest possible pricing for these types of services.
Okay, so piggyback does mean we're paying for it.
Yeah, it is a paid service. It is a paid service,
and that means that we can go somewhere else, and that's what you're talking
Absolutely.
about.
Absolutely, yes. So that's where I'm going. That's my next slide. So basically, since the recurrence of this issue, we've been working with multiple vendors to design a new solution. And that essentially will mirror what we did with our internet connection. So the game plan is to bring in a failover circuit that is supplied by another vendor under a different technology. And once we implement that failover circuit, that will provide us with the assurance that should something happen to our phone lines, then the service will automatically roll over to that backup circuit. So there'll be no loss in service to us. And then once that failover is in place, we'll have the ability to migrate the legacy circuit that currently exists to another technology or another vendor. But at that point, we'll have the assurance that there's no possibility of disruption to telephony service like we've been experiencing because we have no backup right now. So that's the strategy. And, you know, I want you to know that the purchase of the failover circuit is in progress, and that we have been, you know, advised in terms of the timelines for this type of a transition, that we're looking at probably a spring migration. So by the spring, we should have the kind of redundancy that we have for internet connectivity in place for telephony.
I thought we had to get it in the winter to make sure it doesn't rain out.
Right. Well, I mean, I've never hoped for a drought before, but
So who are the vendors?
we're currently still talking to the vendor, so we're not in contract with anyone yet.
Okay, so let me be more specific. Are any of the vendors you're talking to AT&T?
They're not.
No, good.
No, the failover
No
is going to be another party. It's just like we did with the internet. We want to make sure that we have like as much redundancy as possible. So they're different vendors.
Do you plan to keep it that way? That the vendors we're talking to are not AT&T?
I'm not sure yet. So we'll have to see. I mean, we're with the issue with infrastructure, and in particular in an area like where we are, is that there are a lot of limitations in terms of what options are available to you, because not a lot of vendors service this area.
Okay, well, let me be a little bit more clear. In which camera am I looking at? Okay, is it this camera? I am not voting for anything that says AT&T. Okay, so.
Noted.
Yes. And my mic was on, and I was looking at that camera. Okay.
Understood. Yeah, so there is a plan in place. This is a very unusual situation in the 3 school districts where I've worked. In the 20 years that I've worked in public education, the dial tone is the last thing that I've had to worry about. Well, we're talking about 200-year-old technology here. Generally, the kinks are worked out. This is a very, very unusual circumstance. And we have had many meetings with AT&T where we have made it very clear to them how dissatisfied we are with the level of service that we're receiving, and how inadequate their treatment and their support has been. We've been very, very transparent about that.
Again, I had one other question, because when I was going through our prep work for this, we talked about this being a temporary solution. What is your definition of temporary? And
the solution that they implemented? Yeah.
No, just all of this. This is okay.
So the strategy that we're talking about today is not a temporary solution. What we're talking about today is implementing the level of robust infrastructure that we should expect and that we have deployed in other areas of our infrastructure. Telephony for us was deprioritized because typically it wasn't, first of all, as high a priority because it wasn't in need of immediate attention, such as the other functional areas of our infrastructure, but it rose to the top as soon as we started to experience these issues with AT&T.
Okay, and the reason why I said was because in my prep, we were doing a lot of discussions, and the word temporary came up, and I was not interested in the word temporary.
Yeah.
No, I wanted to make sure that everything we were doing was.
My apologies. I mean, the only thing that was temporary was the solution that they implemented last year when they told us that they fixed it. And essentially, they didn't correct the cable that is problematic runs from, I guess there's a Moose Lodge somewhere on Rio Linda right up there, up the street. Yep. So there's a box over here on the corner of Rio Linda and Marysville. And between there's a cable that runs, it's a bundle of cable, has many dozens of cables in it. 2 of those wires in that bundle belong to us, connect to our phone system. And what they did is they said, these are 2 bad wires. We're just going to put you on 2 other wires, and we're going to cross our fingers and hope that those are okay. And they were okay for a little while until it started raining again. And then those 2 wires began to become problematic. So that's the temporary solution to which I was referring. I apologize for the confusion. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Anything else?
So that,
Oh, you're
I mean,
still
that,
going, okay.
that concludes the update. I mean, this is only infrastructure focused. There are lots and lots of moving parts and bits and pieces that comprise infrastructure that we won't go into today, but I do want to take the opportunity to give a shout out to Chuck, who's a large part of his job is maintaining this infrastructure. So I just wanted to say thank you. He's quiet in the back of the room there, and just acknowledge that that he does spend a lot of time. This is his baby, and he does a terrific job of maintaining our infrastructure. Well, thank you all too.
Just a quick question, 2 things. You said that we want to deploy background carrier circuit with a voice over internet protocol, VoIP.
Yeah, that's a technology that we're looking at now. It's, again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to differentiate the technologies that we're using. Our phone system is very flexible and can actually connect to lots of different types of circuits. And so what we want to do is look at a couple of different options so that we can, maximize the fault tolerance, as it's called, of our system.
We used to have a business over here in Norgate and El Paso, and we used to use the voice over IP, and also we used to use consolidated communication, which has a fiber optic.
Yes.
And it was never an issue.
Never an issue?
Never have an issue with them. So I don't have nothing. They didn't give me no money, but
yeah, no, we work with them as well. Like I said, we're agnostic. We're looking for the best product at the best cost for the district.
I know they are in the area because we was right there, but
yeah,
we'll see.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chuck.
Thank you. Thank you for you guys.
Okay, moving on to our 6th report of the evening. Enrollment and attendance update.
I'll try to talk fast. Okay.
It was supposed to start by 10, right? 10 o'clock is we can't say about the legally.
I'll talk really quickly. I'll try. So members of the board, Superintendent Chen, good to see you again. This presentation, we're going to be focusing on enrollment figures for the 24-25 school year, and we'll share information about attendance for the prior year and where we are through today. So we'll do a year-to-date brief update on attendance. Every year we examine this information because the size and the profile of our district drives the resources, the programs, the services required to help them flourish. And this data helps us to understand our system so that we can make good decisions and align resources to needs in support of those goals. In the backdrop of this presentation, I want us to be to remember that districts across the country are still trying to recover from the effects of the pandemic. You've heard quite a bit about that today, and in particular on enrollment and attendance. And on top of that, recent changes in the economic and the political landscape are making it more critical for us to do everything possible to prepare our students for success. So with that being said, we'll start with an overview of our enrollment counts for the 24-25 year. This slide here depicts the 1,894 students enrolled at Robla this year and their distribution across our schools and grade levels. These counts, as you probably are aware, are based on an enrollment snapshot. This is a single day, a single point in time that is consistently taken every single year on the first Wednesday of October. We refer to that as Census Day. And then this information is used by the CDE as the basis for determining district funding apportionments and for creating reports and student enrollment counts and calculating accountability measures like the dashboard. The top portion of the slide reflects enrollment counts and overall percentage of district enrollment by school. Just a reminder that NPS refers to non-public schools where Robla students are being provided specialized instructional services by a third party that's contracted by the district. The bottom portion of the slide reflects enrollment counts and individual grade level counts by school. And you'll note that the preschool is not included in this enrollment count. We'll talk about their data in a second. Okay, again, remember that this is a snapshot in time and that these figures will vary slightly over the course of the year as Robla is processing new enrollments that come in and or dropping students that leave the district at some point in the year. Okay, on this next slide, we're looking at how this year's enrollment stacks up relative to school years over the past decade or so. This slide tells us that our current count of 1,894 students on Census Day is a decrease of about 1.5% relative to last year. We are about 18.75% below our peak of 2331 way back in 2014-15, and we're 7.6% below the average enrollment of 2049 students per year over this entire time frame. For the most recent 3 years, our average enrollment count is 1907. Okay, this slide also demonstrates the district's difficulty in recovering enrollment post-COVID. In the 6 years prior to the close of school, Robla averaged 2,160 students. In the 4 years since schools were reopened after the lockdown, Robla has averaged 1,908 students, which is a drop of about 11.6% pre versus post-COVID. However, as you're probably aware, we're not alone in this regard. For example, in 1920, before the pandemic, the entire state of California recorded a Census Day enrollment of 6.2 million students. And then last year, statewide enrollment was down to 5.8 million. So as a state, we're down about 5.3% in enrollment. So for this reason, bringing students back to school is a top priority for the governor, for the CDE, and definitely for Robla as well. One positive trend that we're seeing on this slide here is that our enrollment decreases are actually smaller post-COVID than they were pre-COVID. And that implies that this decrease in enrollment, this trend actually started before COVID, which implies that perhaps there's something happening in the area that is influencing enrollment. And if you look at the last 4 years, our enrollment does appear to be stabilizing somewhat. So we're not seeing the drastic swings year over year in enrollment. Here we take a look at enrollment counts across grade levels over the past 4 years. Across the board, we saw some moderate pluses and minuses across all grade levels. Kindergarten, first, second, third, and fifth grades saw some small drops in enrollment, and TK fourth and sixth saw some increases. I apologize for the size of the font on this. A lot of this is due to just grade size bubbles passing through our system. One thing, though, that we do want to spotlight is the start of our student pipeline, TK. We do see a continuation of growth at the entry point, which reflects a growth in focus clearly by the state on TK, but I think also a growth in awareness by our parents and the availability of TK. We do see that growth is slowing down a little bit. We don't have a lot of data points to go on here, so I wouldn't say this constitutes a trend. But we do see a fairly consistent growth. All that being said, we do know that between the steady growth, the specialized classroom and credential requirements, and the expectation of the 10-to-1 TK ratio that Gerardo referenced earlier, we're going to have to keep focusing on meeting TK specific staffing and resource needs as a district. That will be a challenge for us going forward. Okay, in terms of demographic distribution, which helps us to understand the community that we're serving. Our population does continue to be very diverse, with well over a dozen ethnicities represented in the student body, which is consistent with prior years. The chart here depicts any variances compared to last year below the indicated percentages. Here we're looking at the distribution of primary languages among our student population. As a reminder, primary language is defined by the CDE as the language that a student primarily speaks at home. It's self-reported by the family. As you can see, over 44% of our students speak a primary language other than English, which obviously presents challenges in terms of our ability to interact with engage our families and our community. In addition to that, while Spanish, Hmong, and Russian are the most represented languages in our students' homes, I think it was worth noting that over 100 of our students speak one of 19 other languages not represented on this chart at home. I think we talked about unduplicated count a little bit earlier today during the fiscal update. As you'll know, at the start of the school year, all of our students' needs and demographic information are documented in our student information system so that when data are reported to the state, every one of our neediest students is identified and counted. These students entitle the district to supplemental funding that is intended to support programs and resources to meet their specific needs. Each qualifying student is counted only once, regardless of the number of programs that they fall into, and that's where the term unduplicated comes from. This year, we're projecting that over 89% of our students are identified as unduplicated. And the slide here reflects the percent of students who participate in each of the most significant qualified programs.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, this is a couple slides back. On the student demographics. If a person has multiple ethnicities, how are they reported in here?
There is an option for multiple ethnicities. So they're under the 1%. Yeah.
Okay.
Just didn't get on the list, unfortunately.
So they're under the 1%. This still adds up to 98%.
Yeah, I think that we didn't. There are probably a couple that are really small.
Okay.
Get on the list here.
Okay.
And there's another category.
Others too. Maybe others.
So sorry, going back to that. So,
sure.
If it's other, well, I don't know. Can you explain that a little bit? I mean, how do you?
Other languages would be like something like Marshallese.
No, I mean the other ethnicities. So if a person reports two ethnicities, do both of them go into other?
No, it gets listed as more than one ethnicity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that means
is the category.
So two or more does go into that one category.
Category called two or more.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I mean. Okay.
Okay, let's see. I think we're here. So this is another metric that we look at, retention. When we look at how many of last year's TK to fifth grade students returned to Robla school this year, we can see that short of 91% of Robla students came back in 24-25. So students that finished with us in 23-24, how many are coming back? This is an improvement over last year. We want to make sure that our students want to come back to a Robla school. We're constantly striving to make this number as close to 100% as we possibly can. A quick look at Robla preschool. This year we have 105 students enrolled at the preschool as of Census Day, which represents a 32% decrease over last year, but there are some caveats here. First of all, preschool enrollment is not reported to CalPADS, And we choose Census Day as the day to capture the count, but that date may not necessarily coincide with peak enrollment at the preschool. So we just apply that date in order to have coherence internally in terms of when we run the numbers. In fact, we know for a fact that last year it wasn't when the preschool had peak enrollment because they finished the year with 198 students. And as you can see here, on Census Day, they had 154. There was a big push in the fall and winter by our director, Salceda, at the preschool, where a number of additional students were enrolled after this census date that we chose. Secondly, this year, we have the additional caveat that there's construction going on at the preschool, and a number of the classrooms are not available to students. And so as a result, their enrollment is constrained. And we are certain, knowing that they have a wait list, that when those classrooms reopen, that we will see the numbers pretty rapidly increase at the preschool.
So like the budget, there'll be a May revise.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
So like the budget, there'll be a May revise.
Maybe earlier than May. We'll see. We'll see when it's done. Yeah.
Yeah, we need, not only do we need the classroom space, but we need to make sure that the outdoor space is aligned with the requirements for pre-K. So.
Yeah, but this is a little bit more of a moving target than the district's Census Day count, which is an official point in time that the CDE uses. Okay. Another area that we look at each year is matriculation of school-aged students from our preschool to our elementary school. So what we're looking at here is what happened to the TK and K eligible students in the cohort of the 198 that I just talked about from last year, that ended last year at the preschool based on their birth dates. Now, of those 198 preschoolers in this slide, we're depicting here that 76 were eligible by age for TK this year in 24-25. So what happened to those students? 41% of them matriculated to our elementary schools. So they did go to TK at Bell, Glenwood, and Maine. However, we do have 59% of those TK eligible students that did not matriculate to a TK grade level in our elementary schools. And so our next step here is to look more closely at that population of students to find out where they ended up. Are they at the preschool? Did they leave the district? So that we better understand, especially as the landscape surrounding TK is changing so quickly, how families are making choices about whether to matriculate into TK or to pursue preschool. In the same vein, of those 198 students from last year's cohort, 92 were actually age eligible for kinder this year. And you can see that 54% of those students actually matriculated into K classes at our elementary schools, but 46% did not. And so again, we're going to be looking more closely at those 42 kinder eligible students to find out where they ended up and why. Okay, now a quick pivot to attendance data. As you know, Robla is in differentiated assistance, receiving assistance from the County Office of Education to help us address attendance and chronic absenteeism. I don't think we have to reiterate that we all know this is a crisis across the state, the county, the country. And because this is such a high priority and area of focus for Robla, we wanted to just give you a brief snapshot of where we are right now and the results of our efforts to date. And the news is positive on this front. We continuously roll out attendance challenges and maintain a persistent focus on attendance in multiple areas, and especially during key periods of historically lower attendance throughout the year. And as you heard in many of the SIPSA presentations today, this is an area of focus for the individual schools and school leaders. This is a team effort. Our principals, our assistant principals, our teachers are on board, and we're seeing high engagement, and we're seeing really good results. So since we began focusing on attendance improvement, we have now seen consistent growth year to year, district-wide and at each of our schools. Attendance was up last year from the prior year, and so far this year, year to date, rates do continue to climb. So far, we're up almost 1% from the end of the year last year. And then when we look at attendance rate growth by individual schools, you can see here in this chart that each of our schools has made strides in reducing absences to levels recorded during the 22-23 school year. We're going to continue to disaggregate this information so that we can monitor attendance over the course of the school year. And we want to start looking at this more closely in terms of different student groups, grade levels, and so forth. I know this is a lot of information, especially after 7 presentations, but it's really important for us. This is information that we need to continue to monitor for so many reasons. I do appreciate your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might still have.
Questions, comments? Okay,
Thank
you.
Thank you very much.
Can I just say good job to all the
That was
school?
good. Yeah.
I want to say, like, congratulations to all the schools. Every single one of them increased attendance,
Yeah.
like, by quite a bit, and I'm very proud of that. So.
Yep. Awesome.
Yes. Okay, California dashboard results, English learner services. Report number 7.
Okay, I am going to go through this quickly because you have seen actually a lot of this data already. We're all figuring out how to use this new one. Unfortunately, I was unable to be here when Mr. Penman gave the presentation on the dashboard to share with you the information on the English language indicator called the ELPI, or the English Language Progress Indicator. So I'm just going to go over some of that data with you very quickly. So on the California School Dashboard, these are our measurements. The English Language Progress Indicator, we are in the orange category. The data was surprising. Last year we were in green, and we saw a drop. We saw a drop by over 7%, or excuse me, 6.4%, which indicated us from moving from green to orange. Also, we have a new indicator on the dashboard. This new indicator is the long-term English learners indicator. So now there's a new student group that shows up in all areas on the dashboard. So here we see where they are in terms of their initial exposure on the dashboard. So why did the district go from green to orange? So we looked at all the school sites, and when you look at the school sites, you can see it's a little bit all over the board. And one of the things I want to talk a little bit about is one of the things with the dashboard that is actually kind of, I'd say, a flaw in the dashboard is a small student group can make a big change in your color on the dashboard. So for example, Robla has about 100 English learners. So a 2.5% change means 2.5 children made a change for Robla Elementary School on the dashboard from yellow to orange. But that's not an excuse, just wanted to point that out, that when you have a smaller student group, it fluctuates on the colors a little bit more. So what do we do so that we can get a better picture? We're going to take a look at what makes that indicator. So what makes the indicator is we're looking at LPAC data for students who have taken the LPAC for 2 years in a row. So essentially our 1st through 6th graders. They need to have a 23-24 or 22-23 score and a 23-24 score, and we compare those 2 scores. So the colors there, the purple, blue, turquoise, and pink, are how we look at how each of the students did. In order to make progress on the LP, you need your blue and your purple to go up, okay? And you don't want your turquoise to stay flat. You hope that that one also will go down, and you definitely want the pink to go down. The pink are the students who decrease, so they went backwards. And our students that are in turquoise are students who are kind of flatlining. They're not really making progress. Our students in blue, that number could go down because those students could have been reclassified. They could have also moved backwards. They might be a student that's in that decreased at least 1 LPAC level. I did look, we do not have that case. So our blue went down for some of the schools because those students actually were reclassified out and they're going to be out of the system. So we have the smaller group that are sitting in that blue and staying in that blue for 2 years. Okay. So in working with the school sites, this is what I've really, asked them to focus on. And as you see, when they gave their presentations for the SIPSA, they looked at this information. A lot of them showed you this information, because what we want to know is, are we keeping kids from going backwards? And those children that are going backwards, why? As well as students who are maintaining, why are they not moving up? So those are the areas, the students that I've asked them to focus on. In addition to our long-term English learners, those students actually, the students that were identified as long-term English learners were 6th graders last year, so they are no longer with the Robla School District. So we are looking at the students that we call at risk. And those are students who are probably in that maintained level, and possibly in the decreased level. Those are students who are not making annual progress by going at least from a 1 to a low 2, a low 2 to a high 2, and so forth. So it has 6 levels that they can move. The other component on the dashboard is our local measures. Most of these measures are the measures that we use, rubrics given to us by California Department of Ed. We complete those rubrics with the caveat of the priority 1, where we actually do now have basic teacher teacher information in terms of credentials that goes through the SSS, with something system that Nicole Sullivan imports that data, so then it gets matriculated into CalPATS. So that was very quick, but I feel that our principals did talk about their EL data. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you for clarifying the slide with the different colors. That was helpful. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Our last report of the evening. Revised policies, regulations, and/or first reading, revised policies, regulations, and/or exhibits.
Just in alignment with updating our board policies and administrative regulations, especially in alignment with our trainings for FRISC and Title VII.
Thank you. Questions, comments, concerns?
Mhm.
Great.
Great.
Moving on. I'm sorry. I need a breather. I just need a breather, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
The motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The consent agenda has been approved. Moving on to action items. And we only have a few here. This is section 7A. Approve 5% increase to board member compensation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That's not an opposition. Okay. Opposed?
Nay.
Abstention?
I don't think we deserve it after seeing everything tonight.
Okay. Abstention? Okay. Motion carries 3-1. You've noted. Thank you. Moving on to 7B. Approve 2024/25 expanded learning summer contract with Roberts Family Development Center.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Just their summer contract for Freedom School.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item C, approve change order number 3 to the agreement with Enviroplex, Inc. for the Bell Avenue new preschool and transitional kindergarten classroom construction project.
So moved.
Second.
Is there a motion to second? Is there any discussion?
This is in alignment with the presentation, one of the pieces that we would need that would make our application stronger for the extension. I want to say C and D, C Oh, no, this is different. I'm sorry. Nope, this is change order.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This change order has to do with, we have to replace the toilets in the preschool and TK building to ensure that it is allowable for our students age 2 to 4. With the age decrease in TK going down to 4, normally the regular bathrooms in kindergarten were 5. So we needed to have a smaller toilet to accommodate ages 2 to 4, as well as adjustments to the flooring in the preschool building. It was originally all carpet, and for the preschool, it is it all tile or all non-carpet or half and half?
Luxury vinyl tile and carpet, it's a combination.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yes. But it was originally all carpet, but now we have luxury vinyl tile.
So moved.
Oh, it's been, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
Sorry, I'm half asleep.
It's okay. D, I think this is what you were getting at. Okay, so approve agreement for modular construction services with Enviroplex for the Main Avenue new preschool and transitional kindergarten / kindergarten classrooms construction project.
So move.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? I know we've had some, but
Yes, so from earlier discussion, so D and E are associated. It's important that we approve the original proposal, and then we recognize we were able to do some value engineering to save some money in item E.
okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item E, approve amendment number 1 to the 4 modular construction services with Enviroplex for the Main Avenue new preschool and transitional kindergarten / kindergarten classrooms construction project.
So move.
Second.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? I will say thank you for saving us $113,761. Much appreciated.
61.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Finally, last item. I know it's been a long night. Board member requests for future agenda items and reports. Trustee Devine?
Nothing at this time.
No, Trustee Cardona, sorry. It's been a long evening. Trustee Hamilton Starks?
I do have something. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the courageous individuals who have come forward to share their concerns about the after school program with me, the after school program, specifically Helen. I'm truly grateful for the time and care that you took to reach out to me and to share those detailed accounts with issues that you've either witnessed or that you've personally experienced. Your voices are invaluable and they're really important to me. And I want you to know that addressing those concerns is a priority to me. And so I'm requesting that we add Helen to the Helen After School program be added to the agenda for our February 20th meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And I want to thank you for saying what you did and just let people know that these are board meetings and they're very structured, unfortunately. So it may seem like we don't hear everyone, but we actually do. These meetings are very structured to me, and there are things that we can discuss and things that we cannot, but we do hear everyone. We listen. I do not have any, well, just one, a couple. Not that it's an agenda item, but I would love to know or see if there's any information about the people who have been displaced in Southern California and if or where, they're going in. I know it's kind of hard, but I would, if they're coming this way, how we can prepare. That's one thing. I'd love to hear more about the training that we have to do. And because I know that we have 12 months to do it, and I don't want to get to the 12th month and then have to hurry and try to find someone. And the last thing is, it really broke my heart to hear that we have children who are afraid to come to school and parents who are afraid to send their kids to school. And hearing one report of a parent, well, I just say it's heartbreaking. And I would love to put out some kind of statement or something that says that your child is safe with us, and that we're not. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for attending.